Right now, we head down to Austin. Visit with State Representative Dustin Burrows. Representative Burrows, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. I'm fine. How are you?
Doing well. It's we're now in, I guess, what you would call crunch time down in Austin, correct?
It is crunch time. Absolutely. We have till Thursday to pass House bills out of the House.
Well, I know we'll get to everything. Well, maybe not everything, but a lot of the bills that the House still has pending. But let's first get to you've had a victory so far on at least one of your pieces of legislation, and you've got some others that are coming close to being victorious. Correct?
Yes. So last week we passed House Bill 338, and what it does is provides certain protections to our farmers out here. Precluding them from getting sued when they don't need to on acreage contracts. So really good, asked for by a lot of the cotton farmers, and we passed on second and third reading last week, and very proud of that, and it's off over to the Senate.
What are some other pieces of legislation that you have that may be coming up today or tomorrow or, hopefully before the deadline?
Yeah, so we have two bills trying to give them some added protections, making sure that if they get injured on the job, somebody's there to help them navigate through the complicated workers' comp policy, and so they can get back on the streets to helping protect and defend us. And so I think those two bills will be heard today. I've got another bill that's got a spot on the calendar. We may move it till tomorrow that deals with price transparency and saying that, before medical providers report somebody to a credit agency that y'all needed to discuss the price first. So we're working on that, working with some language, maybe some amendment language, probably get that heard tomorrow.
Is there anything that, in your opinion, is a major piece of legislation or a big piece of legislation that right now is in danger of dying just because you're running out of time?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. We're wanting to see some good pro-life measures, and the House is still trying to get to those. I know that there is a bill that's going to be heard later on this week, and I think that there's going to be a lot of efforts to try to make sure that we get that heard so that the House can actually pass some pro-life measures and not just have to take the Senate's.
Well, with time ticking down, what does this mean for y'all's schedule? I know y'all were working into the weekend. What's it look like as far as the schedule goes? Are y'all basically on a 20-hour schedule now in the House?
Yeah, we worked Saturday, and then yesterday, Sunday, a lot of us who are on different policy committees were meeting and discussing the bills coming up this week. But we go on the calendar today at 10 o'clock, meaning we're actually going to start hearing bills at 10 o'clock here in the House. We'll probably work till at least 10 or 11 o'clock every night this week up until Thursday, which will work till midnight. And at midnight, when the clock strikes midnight, every House bill that didn't pass second reading is dead unless it's on, there's a local and consent calendar. So except for local and consent, every major piece of legislation that doesn't get heard and voted on by Thursday at midnight is done.
I wanted to ask you about House Bill 25. It came up last week. It was approved in the Texas House. It moved to abolish the, quote, one-punch voting. Tell the listeners a little bit about that and what your thought process was on that bill. I know it heads to the Senate now, correct?
Yeah, it ended up being not a totally partisan vote, but the idea, Representative Ron Simmons out of Carrollton carried the legislation. And the idea is to make sure that as people are going down the ballot, that they actually go down the ballot rather than just hitting one punch. A lot of states have moved to that and thinking that it makes more competitive and better down the ballot races. And so at the end of the day, I think that anytime you get voters more involved with selecting during the November, it's going to be better. I think a lot of the Democrats feared, based on other states, that it helps Republicans. And so they had some concerns over that. They certainly expressed that. But at the end of the day, it did pass, and I think the lieutenant governor, the speaker, and the governor all considered this a priority item for this session.
Let's talk about another priority item that's been a little bit in the news. You might have heard about it, sanctuary cities. The governor signing off on that last night. I don't know if we've actually spoken since it passed in the House. Give our listeners some insight into the back and forth and the Schaefer amendment, which really shook up the Democrats. Only they had a chance to kill it off from multiple reports that I've seen.
Yeah, it's obviously one of the most hotly discussed items, and we came into this session pretty certain that we were going to pass a very strong sanctuary cities ban, that everyone respects the rule of law, and we want to make sure that we were stopping these sanctuary cities from continuing to be in existence. And so the House bill came up. It was actually Senator Perry's bill. And I think within the first 30 or 45 minutes of the debate, myself and all of my Republican colleagues had already been called bigots, racists, white supremacists, and every other name, unchristian, every other name under the sun. So, within 30 minutes, it kind of became unglued. The Democrats obviously were very against this piece of legislation. We ended up passing it. There is the Schaefer Amendment, which simply says that, if the police actually have somebody detained, they are allowed to inquire about, their legal status here in the United States. And the political part of it, and you mentioned this, is really interesting. The Republicans had given them two opportunities to essentially not have that amendment go on because they knew that that's what they claimed was they really did not want to see that. And they made the choice, or at least some in their party, I think they were split, decided they would rather grandstand and call us, names rather than essentially doing what they said needed to be done to take care of, their special interests they represent. So they ended up going for hours and hours longer, and they did call us every name under the sun, and at the end of the day, the Schaefer Amendment did go on.
And I'm fine with the bill. I've got no problem with the bill. Was there any hesitation on your end or on anyone else's when it came to the Schaefer Amendment and the lawfully detained part? Was there any hesitation at all on that?
No, look, I think most of us were familiar with the Supreme Court deciding that this is constitutional under U.S. versus Arizona, and it's just good policy. And so, with the exception of, I think, 3 or 4 Republicans, we all supported it. And the governor obviously did as well. I was unable to actually watch his Facebook signing last night of the bill. I need to go back and see it, but I heard he did a very good job with it, and he was very proud of it.
And some of the Democrats, I guess, talking points on this has been, in trying to, I guess, educate Republicans. It's always nice when the Democrats are educating Republicans on the best way of winning elections. They say that, Texas has always been open for Hispanics, and that Texas has always been a place where people feel safe, and that this will change everything, Representative Burrows, that now Hispanics will not feel safe and that everyone's going to be run out of the state of Texas.
Chad, this is still open to Hispanics. It's absolutely ridiculous. And they're claiming that this bill is going to, make certain people live in fear. No, the only people who are trying to basically be fear-mongers in this are the Democrats who are making those points, saying that this bill should make fear. So, it's just politics. We just talked about the decision that they made. And at the end of the day, I think that they saw this as an opportunity to make political statements rather than, making policy.
Yeah. Let's see. I guess some of the other major reform or at least things that the House has brought up as a priority has been child welfare reform. Can you talk about where we are on that front? That's been, I know, a priority of the speakers.
So we've already passed House Bills 4 and 5, which are kind of some structural reforms and also providing more opportunities for families to take in children rather than strangers in the once the removal happens from CPS. We actually have 2 more components of that on the floor today. House Bill 7 by Gene Wu, who is a CPS attorney himself, and he's written the parental rights legislation. If you actually take a look at a lot of what he's doing, a lot of it's language from a bill that I filed that has had a hearing on it, and it's attempting to strengthen parental rights. One of the things that we learned, and the governor alluded to this in his State of the State address, is as we continue to have extra scrutiny on the agency, both the media and the politicians, there had been some instances of removals that were not warranted. And every time you remove a child from his home, that creates a lot of trauma on the child and the family. And so one of the things that we wanted to do, part of this legislative session, is to make sure that parental rights and court oversight were strengthened so that we didn't have any unnecessary trauma on the child when they were removed. So House Bill 7 is on the floor today. House Bill 6, which is James Frank's bill, he's out of Wichita Falls, good West Texas conservative, is trying to strengthen the faith-based community's participation in the foster adoption programs and making sure that they have a seat at the table. And this is very much supported by groups around Lubbock who have historically been the ones who've engaged in this area.
Very interesting. Representative Burrows, before we let you go, anything else that folks need to know about as we get down to crunch time in Austin and for the House?
Yeah, look, there are a lot of bills being heard. I mean, I think we have 90 on each of the calendars going forward over the next couple of days. If there's anybody who has a bill on their mind, something they've seen it, we'd love to hear from them. Invite them to call the office. You can find all of my contact information on the website, Burrows for Texas. And if there's anything that you think that we need to be doing about these bills, certainly welcome the call, and hopefully we can chat about it.
One more before I let you go. Sorry, lied to you. Anything else on any gun legislation, anything else that's going to move, you think, in the House?
Yeah, so House Bill 300, we ended up reducing the license to carry fee from the full to $40, and so we're certainly making that a whole lot more accessible. We passed a companion to the ear protection. Drew Springer carried a bill that's going to help be able to have silencers, especially if the federal government passes their legislation. So we continue to work on that. Those are the two big ones. I don't know if you're going to see either White or Stickland's bill make it to the floor for unlicensed carry or not.
Yeah. All right, Representative Burrows, we'll let you get back to work. It's crunch time in Austin, and I'm sure we'll visit with you either next week or the week after.
Chad, thanks as always.
Thank you. That's Representative Dustin Burrows here on the Chad Hasty Show.